This episode is sponsored by Flawless, a Texas-based natural skincare line for all skin types started by a friend of mine from undergrad, Bianca. After we graduated from university, Bianca had broken out with cystic acne, dry, peeling, irritated skin, and had scabs and scars all over her face. She tried different skincare methods and skincare lines for about 3.5 years with no success. That's when she remembered the idea of Flawless that God gave her almost 4 years prior, and she started making her own natural soaps. The name Flawless came from the Bible verse Song of Solomon, chapter 4, verse 7, which says, "You are altogether beautiful, my love. There is no flaw in you." I started using Flawless because I wanted to clear my face as I saw it had for Bianca. And let me tell you, this has done the trick. What I like about these products is that everything is handcrafted. Her soaps are made in small batches to ensure the highest level of quality, and they're free of parabens, phthalates, and sodium lauryl sulfate. They're also slowly cured using the traditional cold process method, and they use oils, milks, purees, and moisturizing butters to make your skin look and feel flawless. If you're looking for skincare products that are made with care using ingredients you trust, go to www.flawlessnaturalsoaps.com and use my referral code FIRSTBASO to get 10% off all purchases over $10. Choose Flawless and be reminded just how beautiful you are in the eyes of God. You're listening to First Baso. First Baso, a show where we learn together how to take that first baso toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushala, and today I wanted to address a slight problem that is going on in the world today that kind of hurts my pharmacist and public health heart. That's the fake vaccines. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. I don't know what country you're in, but there are nations that are having to warn their citizens to be careful as to not take a fake vaccine. And so I thought it would be my duty to maybe help you figure out if the vaccine you got might be fake. So here's just some ways, maybe a few indicators that you can figure that out. So if you got a vaccine from the same person that was selling you a roll of toilet paper at the stoplight, you probably got the fake vaccine. Now, if you realize that the letters on the syringe are smearing off, yeah, probably a fake vaccine. If the word COVID is spelled wrong, if they got Covic, Cavid, Rona, yeah, probably not the vaccine. If your syringe smells like Clorox, you may have just gotten Clorox in a little glass container, okay? And lastly, if the needle is taped on with some duct tape or put on with some super glue to ensure that it's intact, you probably didn't get the vaccine. So I'm just trying to help you out. I highly recommend, if you're going to get the vaccine, that you go through an official source like a hospital, a clinic, a pharmacy. Go and check out your local health department, your state, your nation health departments, and see what the information they have there says. So you don't end up injecting bleach into yourself, because I don't want that for y'all. Okay, so let's be careful in these streets. Okay, I'm looking at you, Ecuador, Nigeria, all these places. I know the times are rough, but Don't get that desperate, okay? And if you got a friend who's trying to send and sell out those bootleg vaccines, let them know they shouldn't be doing that. Don't be doing that. Don't be doing that. Okay, so that's me looking out for y'all. Look out for your friends, and don't buy that street vendor vaccine. Okay, we gonna make it. We gonna make it. In fact, at least in the U.S., I can only speak for us. Everybody else has their own situations going on with getting the vaccines, and if you're in a country that's still struggling, I'm gonna pray for y'all. I really hope that you guys get what you need. But the US, guys, hey, we got the one and done. Remember, I told y'all about the one and done in episode 38? Well, it's out and it was approved last week. And it's approved for emergency use only. Okay, I just want to make that clear that there is not a vaccine officially approved by the FDA. It's just approved for emergency use right now. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. But the Johnson & Johnson Janssen COVID vaccine came out, I think this week. They're rolling it out. They're actually going to send it out this week. And we will start to see places get that and distribute those vaccines. What makes it different, like I said, is the one and done. And unlike Pfizer and the Moderna, you only have to get one injection. And all I have to say about that is whichever vaccine you can get, I would just get it, honestly. I wouldn't just sit and wait for one to pop up. Follow the categories for your state, even for your county, because I know some states have different counties that are following different protocols for who gets vaccinated when. So just pay attention to what's going on in your county, in your state. And for other nations, look out for your local news about who gets to get vaccinated when. And sign up for as many places you can to get an appointment or to get an alert to be able to make an appointment. So then whoever you can get an appointment with first, just go to them, regardless of whether that's Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson. Just get vaccinated if that's your desire. If you're still questioning the vaccines, shoot me an email. You can text me. I actually have a new number for anyone who's listening, who follows my content, who listens to my podcast. You guys can actually text me. And yes, it's actually me. I will get the text and I will love to hear from you guys. So you can always text me at +1 if you're international, 859-800-3396. So that's 859-800-3396. And I would love to help with any questions you might have about the vaccine. Again, if you are getting the Pfizer or the Moderna, I would assume even for the Johnson & Johnson, since it is a one and done, I would have Tylenol on standby because the second shot, at least for the Pfizer and Moderna, can be a doozy for a lot of people. So I want to make sure that you guys are covered on that. And I would assume Johnson & Johnson might have that similar effect for people. So don't take it before. Remember, we talked about the potential for blunting the response if you take it before. But if you start showing some kind of symptoms of very, very mild COVID afterwards, they would be like similar to COVID symptoms. You feel fatigue. You might feel, drowsy, pain in the injection site, obviously, vertigo, which is like a sense of dizziness. Just you kind of feel a little sick for a few hours. I would take some Tylenol, okay? So that's my PSA for you guys before we jump into today's topic, which actually comes from one of you guys. So I've been getting questions from you guys, and it's been so fascinating, the questions that you guys want me to address. And so I'll start doing that more often, and hopefully I can connect with you guys this way and kind of see what you guys are thinking about in life and where you are and what advice you're needing. So today's topic is actually on the topic of sex, okay? And it's in the context of relationships. So I had someone who would prefer to be anonymous. So an anonymous listener of First Basso had asked me, how would you approach the topic of celibacy in a budding new relationship? This is an interesting question because I think a lot of people would assume that most of us in these streets are just slabao, to pop locking and dropping, but not everybody wants to do that. There's still a lot of people out there who would prefer to be celibate in a relationship. I am one of those people. I'm unashamed of that. And there's some people who would prefer to be sexually active, which again, that's your business. So I'm not gonna get in your business. But I think it's just important in general to have an idea of how you would want to talk about what your sexual desires are in relationship. As far as the timing, how do you approach it? When do you approach it? Do you do it funny? Do you do it serious? Do you do it in the first 5 minutes? Do you wait until you've gone on a couple of dates? Like, how would you do this? I think everyone needs to kind of assess who they're speaking to, but I honestly don't think it's a problem, especially if you're on the side of celibacy, to kind of speak about that earlier on in relationship. And I think you should think of ways that you would want to address that. I don't think it would be cool to be like, I'm not having no sex, by the way. So if you here for sex, you can go. I don't know if I would, you might not want to go that route. You might just want to say something like, hey, so I just want to be upfront because it's an important part of my life and how I operate and my beliefs. But I actually choose to be celibate or abstinent until XYZ, if it's the 90-day rule like Steve Harvey, or until marriage, or whatever your values are. And just be clear about that and honest, and let them know that if that's not something that they would prefer, that, this is just where you are in your walk in life or your walk with God, or whatever angle you're coming from that perspective from. And just be honest, just be yourself. If you are someone who doesn't want to come off too forward in saying that, maybe give it a couple dates just to see, because you might be able to share that when you feel like it's actually going somewhere. If you're on your first date and you don't want to have sex, but this person is trying to be all up on you, you get those vibes. Like, maybe they're not keeping their hands to themselves and you just met them 30 minutes ago. They want to touch your knee, they want to stroke your hair, and you're getting some kind of sense that they might want something at the end of this date. I would probably say something. It's better to be safe than sorry, and just to be honest and say, hey, I just want to be clear that I don't do anything on the first date, or in the first 100 dates, or the first 1,000 dates. Like, I don't. So I just want to be clear. I'm not trying to offend you or anything. I just wanted to say something so I didn't come off as trying to imply that I'm okay with this. I still am trying to get to know you, and I want to get to know you, and let's take it slow. It's okay. I just tell me more about yourself. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do? And what is your definition of success? What is your definition of romance? Or, whatever questions you want to ask. But I would say it in a kind way where you don't offend them if they are making you uncomfortable. Now, if they're being like rude, honey boo boo child, you better just let them know. Excuse you, I don't do all that. I'm gonna need you to stop. Okay. But I'm blunt like that. So, whatever. Now, I can give you some examples from personal experience. So, there have been seasons in my life where I didn't know how to address my boundaries well. I didn't know how to articulate what I was comfortable with and what I wasn't comfortable with. A lot of that had to do with having had been in relationships that were pretty much on the same page as far as celibacy and physical activity. So I didn't really have to have those conversations. But then meeting people and being in relationship with people who had different ideas of what boundaries were, it made me think as I got older how I would want to articulate that. So I'll give you a couple examples. I've been in relationships with guys, or I've spoken with guys where I knew that I was a virgin. I knew that I had sexual boundaries. I knew these things. I didn't always know how to articulate the details of those things, but I just knew that I didn't want to have sex. I knew that there was definitely things that I was not ever really planning on doing. And the older I've gotten, the easier it's been to articulate that and actually stand my ground in that when I've met someone who maybe doesn't have their own standard and they're one of the, well, we'll just go off of what you want, which I'm going to be honest, if you are someone who is celibate, if you're someone who has very reserved boundaries, I would be cautious of getting into a relationship with someone who doesn't know how to articulate their own boundaries, or they want to just go with your flow, because that means that they're going to rely on just you to have a stopping point in the physical part of your relationship, if that's what you want to do. And physical could literally mean anything. If that's holding hands all the way to having sex and whatever you do, Kama Sutra. Well, I don't know. I'm not, no judgment. But if the person doesn't have a means to say, this is also my boundary, and they just want to go with whatever makes you comfortable, that's a danger zone. That's a red flag, because that kind of gives them a means to sway you in directions that you didn't plan on going, and then you might have to backtrack and restate what you wanted, and they're like, oh yeah, cool, whatever you want. I would avoid those relationships like the plague, okay? Find someone who can equally articulate their boundaries, because you do not want to be the sole person deciding what those boundaries are, especially if you're in a new budding relationship. You want to both be accountable to whatever the sexual activity, physical activity you guys do together, and that be a mutual agreement. You don't want it to lead into something where someone's forcing someone to do something they don't want to do, okay? If you're celibate, or you're thinking of being celibate, thinking of abstinence, I have books that I actually recommend reading that give some really great advice. I'm actually actively reading these books, or I've actually finished them. One of them is The Wait by Devon Franklin and Megan Good. Another one is Relationship Goals by Pastor Michael Todd of Transformation Church. These books are really great. Pastor Mike Todd's church, Transformation Church, also has a YouTube channel, and he's done the Relationship Goals series and the Relationship Goals Reloaded series. Those are both really great. And Pastor Jerry Flowers and his wife Tanisha Flowers have a relationship YouTube page called Redefine TV. Also fantastic. I also like The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman, just because it allows you to know what your love language is. It allows you to know how to find out the love language of the person you're interested in, or you're in a new relationship with. That way, if physical touch is part of your top priorities or their top priorities, that's a good reason to need to have the physical boundaries conversation earlier in the relationship, just so you can respect that and still have healthy physical touch experiences in that relationship. Definitely find a way to articulate that part of yourself. And if you're a virgin, team virgins, whoop whoop, don't be ashamed of that. That is your sexual boundary. and you get to choose what that is. You get to choose what those sexual activities you prefer and don't prefer. But at the end of the day, be confident in who you are and your own boundaries and be able to voice that. Then assess the relationship for when you feel like it's the most appropriate time to talk about it. I think a lot of people have different ideas or advice about when to say it. Honestly, as long as you know what you would want to say, that's the best place to start, because I don't want you to be able to go, I'm celibate. And then someone asks you, what does that mean? And you're like, yeah, well, I'll let you know when we get there. See, no, you need to know what there is so they don't dictate you're there. Okay? Do not let someone dictate you're there. If you're the type of person that wants to do all the things, okay? If you're into that stuff, literally no judgment. But being able to articulate that in a tactful way, and you want to also respect the other person's response to that. You also don't want that person to put you in a position that makes you uncomfortable, where they are pushing you to places that you prefer not to be. So know what you want and articulate that well. I hope that's helpful. It can be a difficult conversation. It can be an awkward conversation. But it is a necessary conversation. There's a lot of information out there that people have, that media puts out, movies put out, songs put out, that make people think that they're supposed to put out on their first date, or 90 days into the relationship, or 30 days into the relationship, or guys have different expectation than girls, or, you just don't know. And so it's just better to be clear than to assume. Always be clear, okay? And for those that think it's whack to not have sex before marriage, or think it's whack to wait, or think it's just whack to not be sexually active in general, I would just find someone that suits your sexual needs. Don't put down the person that you're with for not wanting to meet that, if that's important to you, on either side of the spectrum. Just be confident in that. So that's my biggest advice for all of you guys, wherever you are in your sexual journeys. Know what those are, know how to articulate them, and just be confident in that, because that's part of what makes you who you are. And you should be proud of that enough to let the person that you're interested in know, and not be ashamed of that, regardless of how they respond to what you say. Okay? Also, I would decide what your priority lists are when it comes to relationship, and where your celibacy or your intimacy is on your list. It may not be as high as you think. Maybe it's number one. And I also want to be clear before I continue that intimacy does not equal physical activity or physical touch. Physical activity and physical touch can be a form of intimacy, but they are not equal to each other. That lie needs to die. For those who say, I want to be intimate, it just means that we're having sex. Absolutely not. You can be intimate in a variety of ways. You can be mentally intimate. For those sapiosexuals out there, you can stimulate the mind. You can have a connection with how you guys do activities together, and you just have this sense of closeness. Baking can be intimate. There's just things that you do together, or things that you talk about, that can be a form of intimacy. So think about what your priority list is in relationship, and what you would expect in relationship. See where intimacy falls under, and then see the aspects of intimacy that are important to you, and be able to articulate those things, right? So it's just really important to get to know yourself. And this is why I always advise people, you need to really know yourself before you step into a relationship, because there's so many things that can really happen that if you step into a relationship early, you can really get yourself hurt. And you can leave more broken than you entered, which we ain't trying to be pieces of nothing, okay? You are a whole person, okay? So know yourself. Truly, take the time to be single. Take the time to know what you like. Date yourself, okay? Whatever you love to do, find out what those things are, find out what drives you, find out what makes you tick, the things that make you laugh, the things that make you smile, the things that bore you to death, the things that are absolute no-nos in your life, and enjoy getting to know yourself, because then that way you'll have an easier time presenting yourself to someone, articulating who you are, what you desire, what your boundaries are, what you're open to. It brings about a sense of confidence. And I'm speaking to both guys and women out there, okay? Like, I'm speaking to everyone. Know yourself well enough that when you are ready to go out into the dating world and share yourself with someone, you're coming to them with the full package ready to go, okay? You know what's inside of you, and you know exactly how to present that to someone. So that's my advice when it comes to being in relationship, exploring relationship, and if you are celibate, how to articulate that and deciding when is best for you and that person to really have that conversation. Don't feel bad about when you choose to have the conversation. Just try to have it before you go too far somewhere that you didn't want to go. Okay? That's my greatest advice for you. I really hope this episode helps and that you guys really get to navigate in getting to know yourself and in getting to know yourself in the context of relationship and what that looks like and being able to articulate yourself. I want you guys to be able to give me a spiel at any time if I were to talk to you and be like, hey, so how would you talk about your sexual boundaries? Boom, let me know, right? And be confident in it. Don't be embarrassed by it because it's part of who you are. And really knowing your why behind having boundaries really helps to better articulate what you want. So let me know, what would you say to someone and how would you say that? Have you done this before already? Have you had to have this conversation with people, and what was the outcome of that? I would love to hear from you guys. I've definitely had all sorts of experiences where the conversation went really well, the conversation was not as clear, and depending on how I responded, it dictated how the relationships went and how I walked away from those relationships because of my ability to articulate, their ability to articulate. And at the end of the day, I grew to know myself. I had to heal from certain things, but hey, it's all a learning experience, and that's what we're all here for, right? So I hope this episode helps. If you have any other questions in the future that you want to address, let me know. I actually have a ton more to address later, and I can't wait to get to some more. And if you haven't joined my Patreon group, I would love for you guys to join that because I get to let you guys know things early, let you in on some things, send you guys some secret stuff, which I'm working on. So if you want to become a patron, go to www.patreon.com/firstpaso and join Mis Pasitos. I would love to have you on that team. Hit me up on all my socials, and I can't wait to hear from you guys next time. So until then, we will talk soon. Get vaccinated if you can. Love you guys. Bye.